What's up, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Cons.
Between the Cons.
My name is Kris, and with me today, I've got Kris Too.
Kris dos.
Numero deux.
Numero deux. We're doing Spanish and French.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
and
cool.
English.
Multilingual on this episode.
Just when we're talking about numbers, anything else, and I'm way over my head. But thanks to everybody that's hit us up on the internet this week. If you haven't done that, do it. If you haven't left a review, do it. If you have left a review, thank you. That was super cool of you. We appreciate it.
We like it.
But this week we're going to be talking about something that sounds like it's something we've talked about before, but it totally isn't.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about why do great film franchises go bad? That being said, we've talked about the problem with the cinematic universe. Are comic book movies actually good movies? All these things. This is a totally different episode. We're going to be talking about Star Wars. We're going to be talking about the Tolkien movies. We're going to be talking about Pirates, Terminator, Indiana Jones. So follow us into this 16-second segue, and let's get into Topic Thunder.
Okay, so first, like Kris said, when this topic was first thrown out, I had not, or I guess when I first threw this topic out as an idea, we had not yet put up the episode with the Outlaw Steve Jr.
Yeah,
talking
it was
about,
weeks ago.
Yeah, just talking about, but then after listening to that, I was like, oh, this actually kind of works together. So we kind of want to build off of that. Want to say right out of the gate, we're not going to be talking about superhero franchises because we could very easily do that, but that would kind of be rehashing a lot of the stuff that you guys have already heard, and we're not here to be redundant as best we can. But
as best we can. Much emphasis on as best we can.
Yeah. So, but what first got me thinking on this topic is as of December 19th, the Lord of the Rings franchise, specifically Fellowship of the Ring, will be 15 years old.
Good grief.
I know.
Orlando Bloom is still hot. What?
He doesn't look like he's aged at all. I don't know.
He's actually an elf.
And on that token, a lot of the guys that don't look like they've aged. Like Elijah Wood still looks like he's 19.
He's looked 19 since he was 5, though, in fairness.
True, fair. But yeah, so, I mean, that was just kind of crazy. It's like, whoa, 15 years. And just recently, actually, I repurchased the extended series or the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings because I wanted to get them on Blu-ray.
So good.
Yeah, and Amazon was doing one of their big sale days where you can get stuff for really, really cheap, and they happened to have the entire trilogy extended edition on Blu-ray. And I think I saved something like $200. I don't know what it was, but it was crazy, like the deal that I got on it. And then I sat my butt down, and over a weekend I went through the whole thing, over 12 hours of film, no regrets.
Yeah, it's the best thing that you can do with a Saturday.
It really was. And the crazy thing, even watching it on Blu-ray, I was sitting there watching it really holds up really well. It's 15 years old. It's still really good, really entertaining. More than a few moments bring me to tears. More than a few moments get me really, really pumped and excited. I love it. I love the series so much. I mean, we love Star Wars. We talk about Star Wars plenty on this podcast, as we're going to do today. But in many ways, Star Wars was for my parents what Lord of the Rings kind of was for me. It was a series that I was super excited about. I was ready to devour it, and I did, and I still love it to this day, and I can't wait to pass it on to my kids. Like, it's just that I love these characters, I love the stories, and it holds up really well. And then we had the Hobbit movies, which when they came out, or when it was announced they were coming out, I was super excited for. But whether you like them or if you don't, we all can agree their quality is nowhere near up to the level of what the Lord of the Rings trilogy was. So it got me wondering, and I was kind of looking at it because we're now living in a golden age of geek film. There's so many good things out there, which means that we've now gotten to see a lot of stuff be made really well. We've seen a lot of stuff go bad. And I think it's time to ask ourselves why some of the things that we love so much that are so good go bad. Just to kind of put a little bit of perspective, I'll kick it off with the Lord of the Rings series, and then Kris is going to take it away from me with the Star Wars.
I'll take everything away from you.
he'll take it everything. Lord of the Rings. He loves taking stuff away from me. Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, came out 2001, 2002, 2003. The Rotten Tomato score, just for a quick rundown, The Fellowship of the Ring, 91%. Two Towers, 96%.
So good.
Return of the King, 95%. Each one of those on their own, solid. That's a solid rating. And their whole average for the trilogy comes out to an average rating of 94%. That's like an average rating
real good.
Across 3 movies is really, really good. Especially when so often one movie can't even get close to that. And of course, even looking at margins of error, that's still a awesome rating.
Yeah.
Sure. As opposed to when you look at the Hobbit movies. We have the first one, Unexpected Journey. It's got a 64%.
Not great.
Not great. Desolation of Smaug, 74%.
Smaug
Better.
is the only reason that movie has such a high score.
And that is the honest truth. And then Battle of Five Armies, an abysmal 59%.
For an abysmal film.
Yeah, and the whole average of the Hobbit trilogy comes out to a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Higher than it should be.
I agreed. And that was I was going to say that. I was like, I feel like it should be lower. And here's the thing, guys. Like I said, Lord of the Rings, I love Lord of the Rings. To give you some perspective, my dad doesn't indulge in a lot of geeky things, but when I was still a wee little tiny geek, still just discovering the world, my dad had like all of the books, all of the extended books, the untold stories. He had books that were maps, books about the creatures of Middle-earth. He loves Tolkien.
Books on books on
books. Books on books on books on books. And that was kind of one of the first things that my dad and I bonded over. So Lord of the Rings the whole Tolkien mythos has a huge part of my childhood and a really special place in my heart. And I love these stories. And I was reading them at a very young age. And so when Lord of the Rings came out, this was, and we all remember it, everything from the acting to the design to the writing, and everything was stellar. And even for being longer movies, we didn't care because they were so good. We didn't care that they were longer. And this is in a time when movies didn't often go that long. And you could honestly kind of blame the Lord of the Rings movies for why so many movies today tend to go longer. They kind of got that trend going. So when the Hobbit movie came out, when the first one was coming out, I was really excited. I wanted it to be good. I wanted everything about it to be good. And Unexpected Journey came out, and I was like, okay, I had fun. Yeah, it was a little long. The pacing was a bit slow at times, but it's a lot of exposition setup. I was trying to like justify it. I was trying to tell my friends, no, don't worry, the next one got to be good because don't just wait. They're probably going to see Smaug in the next one. And like Kris said, Smaug is really the only reason that movie got that rating that it did, because it's a lot more of just. It's ponderous. It's slow at times, and this movie that shouldn't be boring at times is boring.
Super boring.
Then we got Battle of Five Armies, and it just kind of wrapped it up, and it kind of felt like they were taking what should have been like a 45-minute scene and stretched it into over 3 hours. And when it was all said and done, and all the dust settled, and everything cleared, I was just kind of left looking at this second trilogy. I was like, man, that sucks. and it made me really sad because The Hobbit, if you guys haven't read The Hobbit, go read The Hobbit. It's a good story. It's a good book. And it's a book. One book. Did not need to be a trilogy.
Really not giant, small book.
So, and why did it have to be this bad? So so then leading us into the topic of this podcast, what went wrong? Why did this go bad? And you can go back and read. Like, I remember I was devouring all the articles. Anytime anything came out about the Hobbit movie, I was reading everything I could, excited and then worried because things weren't going well. And there were, and I'm not going to detail the whole backstory. There were lawsuits going on behind the scenes. It was a very rough time. But really, when it comes right down to it, first, Peter Jackson did not want to direct these movies. And I think that is the most telling reason why these movies didn't do or weren't made as well as they could have been. Because Peter Jackson didn't want to do it. And if your director doesn't want to do it, but he does it anyway, you're not going to have a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct, and it was really excited. And actually, they used a lot of the designs that he came up with. Those stayed in the movie, but he ended up leaving after, like, he was working on this for like 3 years with Peter Jackson, and then he left because it kept on getting delayed, and he's got other things he's got to do. Like, I don't know, I guess he had to do another Pacific Rim movie. I don't know. But so when Del Toro left, Peter Jackson was saying, well, I have to direct it now because we've already put all this money into it and it has to happen, and it can't stink. So, and the thing is, you can go back and watch, like, they were releasing like video diaries to give you behind the scenes stuff of what was going on. And one of the most telling things I noticed is that Peter Jackson is behind the scenes, and so often he's looking really tired. And he's older. He was over 10 years older than when he did the first trilogy.
Right.
But he just looked very disinterested. He was just like, yeah, we'll just CGI that, and
whatever you want.
Or when he's in the editing room, he's sitting on his couch and he looks like he's almost about to fall asleep, like he just needs to take a nap or something. And probably the most discouraging moment for me in all of this that got me worried, oh, this might not be good, is they had a video of the first day of shooting, and all the lead actors were talking to the entire crew and getting them all amped up and saying, yeah, let's do this. And it all seemed really excited. And then Peter Jackson got up there and he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, and so this is not a quote, but it was essentially the spirit of, let's get this over with.
Yay!
And it was just kind of a, yeah, let's go do this. I'm really glad I'm spending my time. And that was really a big thing. I mean, there are a lot of other things that went wrong with this movie. I mean, it should not have been a trilogy.
Never should that have been allowed to happen.
No, and I mean, could it have been done in one movie? Possibly, maybe. Back when they said it was going to be 2 movies, like, okay, I can see that happening. I can see it maybe all the way up until the moment they get captured by the elves, and then the second movie picks up from their escape from the elves, and then everything after that. I can see that happening. But then when it was announced that it was going to be a trilogy, I was confused, and I didn't know why. And then as we saw, what we got what should not have been 3 movies stretched into 3 movies. We got slow pacing, unnecessary characters, unnecessary story arcs, and also they justified it with this forced tie-in to the Lord of the Rings. And if you guys have read The Hobbit, you know, unless you've read Lord of the Rings, you really won't have any sense that this story goes beyond this one book. It's a self-contained story. It's a children's story.
Yeah.
It's just an adventure story where this guy who's living peacefully at home, and then kind of the world comes crashing in through his door and drags him out with it, and he goes on an adventure, and he learns something about himself and learns something about the world, and it's just an exciting adventure story, and that's all it needed to be. But then they did all those scenes that we saw with Gandalf and Saruman and Galadriel, and they were talking about the darkness coming in, rising, and then Gandalf going off to confront the necromancer, which then turned out to be the spirit of Sauron, and all these things that they forced into the story that just had no place being there.
Word.
And I get Peter Jackson, and also talking about unnecessary characters. I get Peter Jackson's and everybody, the team's impulse to put the character of Tariel into the story to create this female elf, because The Hobbit is a movie, or is a book, that has no women in it. It's just a bunch of guys. And especially in this day and age, they want to try to include more stories. And I'm all for that impulse, but at the same time, what she ended up being was this. She started out really cool and it could be a force for like, okay, she's just someone that's going to help, along with Legolas, who's surprisingly there as well, who also didn't need to be there. But then then we got probably one of the worst parts of the trilogy was that love story with one of the dwarfs. And not to mention, we also got sexy dwarves, which...
Yeah, we did. Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. It was bad. That's what I meant.
But, I mean, so we got all of that combined with, again, Peter Jackson's he didn't really want to direct. You look behind the scenes and there was so much green screen they were using. It looked like the Star Wars prequels, like behind the scenes, as opposed to when you watch the behind the scenes on the Lord of the Rings, and there's so much more that's going on, either fully built sets or on location, only using CGI when they needed to. And ultimately, what I boil this all down to, and this is kind of I'm going to say what went wrong with The Hobbit. The massive success of Lord of the Rings essentially ended up with the studios writing a blank check to Jackson,
right?
Where he could do whatever he wanted. And we'll probably mention this more than a couple times in this episode, but this happens a lot when directors get really successful and then they they're no longer surrounded by anybody who will tell them, oh, I think that's a bad idea, or no, you can't do that because that'll cost too much money, right. Or I think there's a better way you can do that part of the story. It's when Lord of the Rings happened, it was a movie that should not have succeeded because the series is such this epic, huge, sweeping story. Right. Nobody thought that it could ever be done. And in some ways it was like they had to work really, really hard to make it, every piece of it, excellent. And they did it. It was successful. We love it. But then with the Hobbit movies, it was like they no longer had to prove themselves. It was just kind of, we're just essentially everything about that movie just looks like we're just doing this to make money. Everything from the way it was filmed, it was so glossy and too pretty looking. It was the sexy dwarves because that looks better in an action figure.
Doesn't really look good ever.
No, everything about these movies just feels wrong.
Yeah.
And we could just talk about this, but we should talk about some other series. But ultimately, why did such a great series, such a beloved series, such one of my favorite film series of all time suddenly go so bad? And I think it's these Peter Jackson kind of just got stuck. He got stuck in a job he didn't want to do, and then he just kind of took the easy route every time. Oh, we'll just green screen that, CG that. We'll do it all in post. It was just kind of like what I imagine was the joke behind the scenes,
which is the worst thing to hear.
Yeah, and you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear your lead artist. You don't want to hear your director kind of not caring.
Right.
And that's what. And you can watch these behind the scenes video diaries where it just sounds like he just doesn't care, whether that's because it was forced onto him or what, or he was just doing it for a paycheck. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that he just kind of got forced into a situation where he had to make it happen. But yeah, and I mean, there are other examples, and probably the other big famous example of this is the Star Wars movies. And
yeah,
you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the original trilogy, New Hope, rocketed at 93%, Empire 94%, Return of the Jedi 80%. Brings the average score to just shy of 90, coming in at 89. Thanks, Jedi.
The critics didn't like Ewoks, I'm guessing.
Yeah, which, screw the critics, man.
Yeah.
Ewoks are the best.
Yeah. And Rebels wouldn't have succeeded without them.
That is sincere. I love the Ewoks.
Yeah.
For the prequels, average score of 66. Phantom Menace just can go die at a 55%. Attack of the Clones, not much better at 65%. And then
that still feels high.
And Revenge of the Sith, somehow barely missing an 80 with 79%. All three of those are way higher than they should be.
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked that up.
If we can give Batman versus Superman like a 6 or whatever, Phantom Menace should be like in the negatives. So what went wrong here? So kind of the same thing. The original trilogy came out for our parents. Our parents were the primary audience for the original trilogy. So Lucasfilm kind of ran out of ideas, more or less, on creating new properties. And they thought, it's been a whole generation since we had a Star Wars movie, and it's still really popular. Let's make Star Wars movies for the new generation. Okay.
So far, not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea at all. Then they said, let's make them prequels. Okay. Not a great idea. Not a bad idea. And then they decided to make, making up a number here, 85% of it green screen.
Yeah.
So you have characters that aren't even, bodies. Like, the guy that played Jar Jar Binks had never seen Jar Jar Binks until he saw the movie. Outside of concept drawings, he had never seen this character. So that's stupid. Yoda, for me, one of the only saving graces of this movie is seeing Yoda be an absolute ninja. That being said, it looks like hot garbage now.
It really does. It's one of those, and it's kind of funny that you mention it because Phantom Menace, which I agree can go die in a garbage fire, but probably one of the few things I like about the original trilogy at all was the final lightsaber duel.
Yeah,
the lightsaber battle, which is because you got Ray Parks, you got the whole Darth Maul fighting, which is a great villain. It was kind of the lightsaber battle that we all kind of wanted.
Yeah,
our whole
especially
lives,
after we saw Darth Maul.
Yeah, and so we got it, and the reason we that the whole thing with Qui-Gon had punch. There was emotion. It was great because these were real characters actually doing the choreography, and then you've got Attack of the Clones with. Yeah, it's really cool seeing Yoda being a crazy ninja, but first, Christopher Lee was way too old to actually do the fighting.
Right.
So a lot of the shots, especially the wide shots in that, it's not even him. It's two cartoons
fighting each other.
We're not seeing real people. Yeah. We're not seeing. It's just okay. We're not even
basically
watching
the Clone Wars at this point. But I think
before we had the Clone Wars,
right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem with the prequels is that they came back and they said, "All right, we're gonna make Star Wars movies for the Star Wars fans' kids," and that was the biggest mistake. They came in and they created a character, Jar Jar, who, follow whatever theory you want. He was created to appeal to the children.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
They put in this pod racing, go-kart, space vehicle, a whole 45 minutes just revolves around this intergalactic go-kart race. It's
and also, Jar Jar also, it kind of makes sense that it was written to appeal to kids because it kind of feels the way Jar Jar's written and the way he was done kind of feels like what a 70-year-old man would think kids would like.
Yeah, and the thing is,
the kids would like this swaggering, slightly racist character, right?
Slightly racist. Well, the thing is you look at properties like Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, straight up kids book. I don't care who you are, that book is for 10 and under. That is the target audience. Does that make me, a near 30-year-old man, less of a fan of that book? Absolutely not.
Nope.
So it's aimed towards children. And then the closer you get to the Deathly Hallows, the darker it gets. The more young adult and adult it gets. Adult, not the X rating.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that did not happen in the Star Wars prequels. They tried, because they have the Phantom Menace, which is very, very much a kids movie. It is the intergalactic heavyweights. And then they have Revenge of the Sith. They have Revenge of the Sith, which has Anakin like being all dark and emo, and like he's a Sith now and he's the bad guy and all this kind of stuff. But it's like 79% is a stupid high rating. That
it
movie,
is.
That I would rather watch like my hair fall out over the next 20 years than watch Revenge of the Sith one time. Like, I don't like any of these movies, and it's not a bias thing. It's just, I mean, it is a bias thing. It's my opinion, but they were written completely different. There is very, very little, very shallow depth to the overarching storyline between all three films. The primary goal of each film is to act as its own film all the way up until the very end. And then it leaves a little bit of a cliffhanger for the next one to pick up.
It just kind of feels like they're just kind of shuffling. Like, we start at the very beginning. Here's the little kid. Everybody knows what he's going to become. Let's shuffle him to this point, and then we stop, and then we just there's nothing driving these characters. It really
exactly
felt like just the writing was just kind of ushering them along a conveyor belt towards their inevitable demise.
Yeah, and it just was not good. And I think one of the biggest things about the prequels that actually led to a slight decline in the originals is they made these movies for kids. Mm-hmm. And then they said, well, now these kids, like the kids that just finished watching Revenge of the Sith, are like 14. Mm-hmm. And they want to watch the original series because the original trilogy, because that's what comes next. So let's make Han a good guy. Let's put a freaking musical scene in the cantina. Let's make all of these characters, like, let's add all of these over-the-top CG characters into a film that took its pride in animatronics. Mm-hmm. And it made the originals look like garbage. I mean,
and then let's put Hayden Christensen as a ghost in the end.
Oh my gosh! There's even a scene. The thing that blows my mind is they had the audacity to mess with Boba. There is a scene where Boba Fett comes flying in a CG like smoke storm coming up behind him. And he like lands down and like has a little conversation and then leaves. And it's like, why did you have to touch this scene? Like, all they did was add smoke and like give him a little extra flair, and it looks like garbage. And because of the prequels spending so much time on making a kids film with over the top graphics and all of this stuff, they went back and touched the originals. And now Disney, hear our cries. We are, as of right now, we are never going to see the originals the way that they were originally released. Ever again. Because George Lucas got greedy. Mm-hmm. And I think, in complete honesty, that's what ruins film franchises. Because kind of carrying on out of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the same garbage happens there. George Lucas got greedy. He wants to make another one. He doesn't really know what he wants to make it about. So, I don't know. Let's make a movie about aliens with glass skeletons. Why does Indiana Jones need to start messing with aliens?
And it's kind of this attitude that we see. I mean, George Lucas has kind of become the poster child for this kind of attitude with filmmakers, is when they become so possessive of the work that they have made, and they don't recognize, no, this stuff belongs to the fans now. Like you said, the original Star Wars, that's what people saw, but then when you go back and start changing things, like fundamentally changing the character of Han to Han doesn't shoot first, he was shooting in self-defense. No, you're fundamentally changing his character, and you're changing someone that we've all got.
Dude. Han is not a cool, he is not a good dude. He is a bad space pirate.
Which helps his character arc, because over the course of the series he becomes noble.
A good dude.
It gives him an arc. But when you go back and change stuff like that, you're pulling the rug out from under people because they've gotten to know this character for years, and then you're saying, actually you don't know them. But also you're claiming this fandom, this stuff that you love doesn't actually belong to you. It actually belongs to me, the creator, which, yes, creators, artists should get compensation for the work that they make. But once your art is out in the world, there's a piece of it that no longer belongs to you.
Turn your ears on.
It belongs to the people that consume it, because, again, not wholly, but again, that's why fandoms exist. That's why new stuff gets made. Honestly, that's why Star Wars got made, because it was George Lucas, who was a fan of Flash Gordon, kind of doing a riff on Flash Gordon. Right. He absorbed that as a kid and then did something new with it. Yeah. That's what fandom does. And yeah, like you said, Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he got obsessed with this idea of
aliens.
Aliens. And the story goes, like, he had won. That's why it took so long for them to make the fourth Indiana Jones movie, because he kept on saying the next one's got to be about aliens. And even Steven Spielberg was like, "No, man, no."
Bro,
and they're like,
that is such a bad idea.
And they are best friends, and so for so long, and Indiana Jones had hundreds of script submissions.
Yeah,
everybody.
When Steven Spielberg
every writer
tells
out
you,
there wanted to do it.
When Steven Spielberg tells you, "Hey, bro, it's a bad idea," you don't do it.
It's a bad idea to do Aliens, because he's done Aliens several times,
and he's won awards for Aliens.
Yeah,
bro. Steven Spielberg knows when to introduce the alien.
But and in interviews, Spielberg said, like, he eventually gave in, kind of just out of friendship. He was like, "I don't think it's a good idea, but I'm gonna do it anyway because you're my friend," and they made it. And in subsequent interviews, like, Spielberg like took the blame for the nuking the fridge scene, and then George Lucas later came out and said, "No, it was actually me. He was trying to protect me out of friendship. That was actually me." Because what happened is that when Lucas first put out there, so yeah, he's gonna survive a nuclear explosion. What? And Spielberg tried to explain to him how that just was dumb. And apparently, the story goes, the next day, Lucas showed up on set with like a 6-inch paper, like a 6-inch binder filled with facts about why it would actually work. And when somebody does that, what are you going to do? Make a 7-inch binder? What are you going to do? Like, no, you're just going to give in. And he's just like, fine. So, and that's, and when you hear more and more stories about the making of this movie, that was just, it all sounded like everybody was just beaten into submission by George Lucas until he finally got his way. Which, again, is a great way to make movies. No, it's not.
But the last two, I mean, we can just throw these together, because it's pretty much the same thing. Terminator and Pirates of the Caribbean. Terminator and Pirates both fall victim to the same problem, which is the first two, maybe, were good.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean,
Terminator 2 definitely
is it's a masterpiece. It's known for its impact in cinema. And the first Pirates of the Caribbean came out of nowhere,
and it was wonderful.
Nobody thought it was going to be good, and we fell in love with it. The second one, it's got its problems, but it still has some fun.
Yeah,
I would still say it's not as good as the first one, just because the first one works as a standalone movie.
Right.
But
I think the biggest issue with both of them is getting so lost in what they are. Like Terminator, you have movies like Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genesis, where like you're writing time travel movies that are taking place at different points in time. Not even like from a time travel standpoint, but it's just one of those things, like it's not, writing about time travel is all well and good. If you want to write about time travel, look at Back to the Future. They don't really explain a lot. It's just like, all right, and now we're in the 80s. How did you get in the 80s? It's not important. Just we
get a little diagram on a chalkboard at one point to explain a divergent timeline, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they don't ask you to look too hard, because if you look too hard, even at Back to the Future, some things aren't going to make sense. But they don't ask you to look hard. They just say, this is a time travel story. This is what happens. Here we are. We're off. Now let's move on.
And that's all you need. And then I think the same thing is the issue with Pirates of the Caribbean. The whole idea behind it makes so much sense, where they're introducing all these supernatural characters and these gimmicks, because that's the pirate mythos. Like that's what the pirates believed to be true back when pirates were like back in the early like
the 17th century,
14 through 1700s.
And it really doesn't. And a lot of people complain about the supernatural elements, but I mean, even the first movie had the whole undead pirates thing, but they didn't go over the top with it. Like the majority of the movie was still shot on location, on set with real actors,
right?
Minimal CG. It was, like the scene. Really, if you want to just look at a comparison, look at the sword fighting scene between Captain Jack and Will Turner in the blacksmith shop. That really fun scene when he's trying to stop Captain Jack from escaping. It was just super exciting. Compare that to the final dueling scene with Captain Jack and Barbossa on top of the sails of the masts on the Flying Dutchman as it's swirling in a whirlpool in the midst of a naval battle. And it's obvious everything about that is just one big CG just dump.
Right.
And you can see where, and like it's almost like they almost use the same that Pirates of the Caribbean theme music, but the first one super exciting, super enjoyable, had moments of humor. We had a great time. By that last one, you're just so brain dead from them taking so many things and throwing them at the screen. It's kind of that problem that we see a lot in films where something is successful, so when they do it again, they have to do it bigger and badder and what they think is better.
Yeah, and I think we need to really, really quick just clarify. We are not saying that the use of CGI is bad.
Oh, no.
We're saying that relying on CGI to carry your film is bad. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these feel like. Is like we've got a new computer trick. Let's throw it. And that's not the only thing. Like I said, I think what Kris was saying earlier, and I think what really the common thread through all of these is that the filmmakers, the producers, the studios, whatever, they had a success at the beginning. So then the next one, they're going to pour more money into it. They're going to do more things with it. They're going to try to
make
blow
the trailer better to make more people show up.
They're going to make bigger explosions and bigger lightsabers and whatever. It's going to, but bigger doesn't mean better. And I think if we're gonna, I guess, wrap this up in any meaningful way to say what have we learned, kids?
Don't make sequels unless they're good.
Well, because Star Wars has the unique position of being a series that started out amazing, it went horrible, and people thought it's dead. But then here we are.
Here we are.
We are now we've now got The Force Awakens, and we just had Rogue One, and things are looking up. Is it because we've got these movies that are being made by somebody other than the original creator? I think that might help. Because
it certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah, you're getting new perspectives. We're also getting, and this is something that's, we haven't seen the Deadpool sequel, and I guess this is breaking my rule of not talking about comic books, but I just thought about it because I said this. They're making this Deadpool sequel, and one of the things they've said is that we don't want to follow the old tired rule of bigger is better. They're actually intentionally keeping the budget lesser than they could because they've been talking about they want to keep the scrappy kind of rough look to it that the first movie had, which gives me hope, because so often when we see these sequels, or we see these sequels of sequels, or sequels of franchises of sequels, ultimately, at the end of the day, you go to them and you're disappointed, and you just kind of feel like, I just saw a bunch of money thrown up on the screen, but I didn't see good writing. I didn't see good storytelling.
Good anything.
And I mean, truth be told, we're now living in a time where we're able to complain about this because the things that we love are getting not only made, but made and remade and remade and remade, which is exciting. But I think it's time that we can say, studios, you got to do a better job. We're the discerning geeks, the discerning fans don't want you to just throw a bunch of garbage up on the screen and call it Star Wars and think that we're going to love it.
Exactly.
We'll go see it, but we won't like it, which I guess kind of is self-defeating.
Yeah. And I think really the biggest thing is if the movie is great, not good to start with, the franchise will be successful.
It helps
for the most part.
Yeah.
At least for the short term.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the more big crazy stuff you see in the trailer, like you look at the Pirates trailers, and like the first handful of trailers were just like good moments, like good moments in the movie, and then now it's just like, let's see how much CG we can put in a trailer.
Yeah, I mean, we just got that. We just got the trailer for the fifth Pirates movie coming out, and you got Javier Bardem as a weird oily ghost gooping through bars, being all creepy, and nothing about that got me excited. Nothing about it said, "Oh yes, I'm gonna go see some fun pirates and high seas action and adventure." No, I'm just like, oh, okay, kind of looks like the other disappointing movies. Good, fun, pass.
Yeah, big pass. But yeah, I think the lesson we've learned here is we should keep filmmakers from getting greedy.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think there's definitely some good things to see, and spreading the wealth around. Where, again, with Star Wars, we're seeing where they've tapped a different director for every movie. I think that's a great plan because you're getting a fresh take. No one's gonna get burned out.
Right.
None of these directors are getting burned out making these movies. Each one of them has fresh new visions. I mean, because we had Force Awakens, which, yes, granted, everyone's talking about, oh, it's so similar to the original, and yes, but in light of the prequels, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it was very much J.J. Abrams, who does really good job at doing really exciting space action. Yeah. And then we've got this Rogue One, which has got like that nice wartime scrappy rebel feel to it, which is what it needs to be for that type of story. and you've got each of these directors that are coming out, and that's just really exciting because you're spreading the wealth around, because arguably the best of the original trilogy was Empire Strikes Back, which George Lucas had the least to do with.
Yeah.
So
speaking of Rogue One, I saw a really funny tweet around when it came out, and it was Vox.com, and it said apparently they reviewed the movie, but I didn't read it because the tweet was so dumb that I didn't want to. But it said Rogue One is the first movie or the first film in the Star Wars franchise to acknowledge war, or to acknowledge that the franchise is all about war or something like that. It's called Star Wars. What? It hurt. It hurt my head. But anyways, that's not important.
So on that disappointing tweet, I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah. I'm glad we don't have dumb posts like that.
We do our best, guys. We do our best.
But yeah,
I spend up to more than 2 hours researching for these podcasts.
Up to more than 2 hours.
Yes.
That was a great sentence. Let's talk about some jams.
What's your jam?
So, Kris, what's your jam?
I kind of have two jams because it's been so long since I've talked about some jams. My first one is I've got this new jacket. I'm really loving it, you guys.
Are you wearing it right now?
Well, no, because I'm inside.
What are you wearing right now? Don't answer that. Tell us about the jacket.
You know what? Good listeners, you can imagine me wearing whatever you want to imagine me wearing. So I've got this new jacket and
Slave Leia.
Yes. It's cold on my skin. I got this jacket. It's from a website called Fan Jackets, and this is a website that specializes in recreating jackets from popular movies. You guys got to go on and check it out. It's really cool. They've got I think every single one of Wolverine's jackets from all the movies. They've got I was actually this close, as I hold my fingers barely apart. I was this close to buying their recreation of Peter Quill's jacket from Guardians of the Galaxy because it looked good.
Yeah, these are super cool.
Yeah, and the part of the reason I didn't buy it was A, because I was trying to go for more of a traditional looking jacket. B, I had never bought from them before, so I didn't know what the quality was. And Peter Quill's jacket is a little bit more of a unique style, so I didn't know if it'd be any good. So I ended up buying Arthur's jacket from the movie Inception. It's this brown leather zip-up jacket, shortcut. And I bought it partly because it was similar in style to a jacket that I had before that I'd really liked. And I remember seeing that jacket in the movie and really liking it. So I went, found it, bought it. It was like $160, which is not bad for a real leather jacket.
Right.
Let me tell you what, guys. It is a beautiful jacket. It's made really well. It fits so great. And it ships from, I think, Iceland, but it didn't cost any extra to ship. Yeah, it didn't cost any extra to ship. That's awesome. It was really good. So yeah, so my jacket is my first jam because it's just a really good jacket. I'm really excited about it because I bought it for myself for my birthday, but I've only been able to wear it recently because I live in Mississippi and it's only just got cold here. My other jam is I just recently joined a group on Facebook called Board Game Traders. Uh-oh. That is traders with a D, not traders with a T. Board Game Traders. It's like many Facebook groups I'm a part of, but this one is just a bunch of people on there who all love board games like we do on this podcast. And a lot of times you go and you buy a board game and you think you're going to love it and you play it a couple times and it's all right, but it's like, I'll probably never play it again. But you can post it on this page saying, these are the games I have for trade. These are the games I'm looking for. And people will trade board games with each other. They'll sell board games to each other. Usually you can get them for a great discount as opposed to buying them in a store. And the reason this is my jam is because just today when we're recording, not today when you guys are listening, just today I had a package come in the mail and I was super excited about it. This guy was selling his collection of the DC deck building game.
Oh, snap.
He had the original base game. He had the Heroes Unite, not even expansion. It's like part 2 because it's the same size box. He also had 2 of the Crisis expansions.
That's so
and
good.
He'd also gotten like an organizer to put in the box to organize all of them. He has all the cards and card sleeves. Like this was like $150, $160 value, and he sold it to me for $85.
Nice. That's awesome.
I was super excited, and again, it's just with different members. So of course, you have to make sure that you're making fair deals, and you'll negotiate. I just did another trade with somebody. I traded away a game and got Lords of Waterdeep and an expansion for Elder Sign, and I'm really excited. That's what's coming soon. But yeah, it's really cool. It's like because I've got a few games that I enjoyed just fine, but I'm probably never going to play them again just because they're not my favorite. But other people out there are looking for them, and they've got games that I want. So we trade or we sell to each other. And so it's really excited. And I and because this just came in the mail, I cannot wait. This week, my wife and I are going to bust out the DC deck building game, and we're going to kick some villains' butts.
Yeah, you are.
So those are my jams. Hey, Chris.
Yes.
What's your jam?
Well, since I give a jam every week, I don't have backed jams. But I just started reading Fuse. Fuse is an Image comic. I actually collect it, so I have first printings of every issue to date.
All the episodes.
But I recently picked up the trades at the library, and I started reading through it, and it's awesome. It's basically like a crime scene thriller kind of thing. It is, but it's all taking place on the Fuse, which is basically like a space station, but it's like a habitat. Like, it's not just a space station. It's like people move to the Fuse from Earth kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But it's super cool. It's been really enjoyable. I've got so many questions. I'm just over halfway through volume 1, and I've got volumes 1 through 3. So I'm really enjoying it. I definitely think if you guys like stuff like that, it's definitely worth the read. At least so far, it is. Plus, it's an Image comic, and Image is easily my favorite independent. They do air quotes independent, not DC or Marvel,
right?
Distributor, publisher.
Yeah, they do some good stuff. My wife and I are right now going through Saga.
Yeah, you are. Jeez,
that's another really good one. So
yeah.
Image is great, but I think I saw Fuse the last free comic book day I went to. I think I saw like they were like the store I was at. They had a big layout of them or something.
Yeah, the Fuse, definitely good, definitely worth it. So everybody should read that.
Cool.
But that's my jam. So
good jams.
Yeah. And that's the show. I mean, that's pretty much all we got for you. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you check out our website, betweenthecons.com, where you can stream our episodes online and link out to all of our social media sites. You can do all sorts of stuff there. It's a good time.
Within reason.
No, all of the things you can do there. That's not true. I made that up. But if you like our theme music, check out Afixa. He's on Bandcamp. He's got some good like 8-bit dubstep for you. And then make sure you guys subscribe to the show. We release new content every Monday and every Thursday. Thursday being the nerdy news, Mondays being the Topic Thunder or Roundtable episodes where we dive deep into the topics of our fandoms or review films. So subscribe, like the show, like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Keep up with us. We post stuff all the time, so you don't want to miss anything. You should basically just be everywhere that we are, which you can find at the bottom of our website, betweenthecons.com. So, yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening, for giving us your time. And you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.
Climb around on the monkey bars, if you know what I'm saying.